Narcissists are masters of creating illusions and perceptions so strong they become reality. They are social engineers, positioning themselves as a godlike figure who rewards the good and punishes the bad. They see themselves as above you, righteous, and possessing power over your fate. They create a nightmare world for the disobedient through their words, because words do create reality. The word becomes flesh, they know it and use it actively every day. This power is wielded in malicious ways, making them extremely dangerous. With my narcissistic roommate, we shared the same religion, but she used it as a tool to manipulate and harm, seemingly without facing any consequences. It made me question religion itself because I realized how it had groomed me to accept being used and abused, and how it had blinded me to common sense and disarmed my ability to protect myself. This realization led me on a journey of leaving religion that spanned many years. I began to see that the power structure, narcissistic narratives, and subconscious programming within my religious upbringing had played a significant role in grooming me for victimization and narcissistic abuse. The most sacred aspects of my life turned out to be the source of my deepest betrayals. Victim narcissists exhibit a peculiar paradox. They constantly portray themselves as victims of life and fate, convincing others that everyone and everything is conspiring against them. They play the poor me card incessantly, even exaggerating minor issues. Yet, paradoxically, they maintain an extraordinarily high self-esteem. Despite appearing pitiful, they hold themselves in high regard and expect others to cater to their every need. If you become ensnared by them, they weave a reality where you feel genuinely trapped as a victim, believing that everything is conspiring against you. When you attempt to discuss this with others, you risk being perceived as the narcissist. Only in your reality is your perspective valid, but to others, you resemble the victim narcissist. The illusion they create to garner sympathy and favors becomes transferred to you. You become trapped in their constructed reality while they reap its benefits, leaving you to face the consequences. They avoid their own karma by projecting it onto you, turning you into a scapegoat or sacrificial lamb in their manipulative rituals. Often, victim narcissists have genuinely experienced significant past victimization, which is unrelated to you or the current situation. They frequently leverage these stories of past suffering to elicit sympathy and manipulate others through empathy. They understand that by invoking their history as a true victim to those who know their story, they can maintain control over others' understanding and exploit it to their advantage. They may not openly discuss their past victimization themselves, creating the appearance that they are not using it for personal gain. However, they ensure that others become aware of their story by selectively sharing it with individuals who they know will spread it widely, often messengers who are narcissists themselves and will then attach to the same victim, making the situation even more complex. This secretive approach allows victim narcissists to garner preferential treatment, heightened empathy, sympathy, and protection from others. It creates the illusion that they did not seek to publicize their story, even though they orchestrated its dissemination behind the scenes. This manipulation can make you feel obligated to continually support and understand them, fearing that you will be viewed negatively if they share stories of how you've supposedly victimized them. Their ability to exploit empathy is a central tactic in their manipulation, creating a dynamic where they appear as perpetual victims while subtly controlling those around them, being a true, primary abuser. For example, a friend of mine, who was a victim narcissist that I lived with, consistently sought sympathy for her minor issues. Even when I was seriously ill with a cold and barely able to move, she insisted that her small scratch deserved more attention. It was bewildering. Despite my obvious severe condition, she believed she should be the center of attention and care. Any suggestion that I deserved rest or attention for myself was met with accusations of selfishness and lack of empathy. This pattern repeated itself across various aspects of our lives together. Because she also had a story of severe victimization in her past that she ensured everyone knew about without openly sharing it, I initially sympathized with her more, and my boundaries were significantly lowered as I tried to be understanding of someone who had been through something so terrible. However, as I began to see how she manipulated and used her victimhood to erode my sense of self and turn me into her servant, my sympathy turned to fear. I no longer empathized with her, but instead became extremely fearful that she would portray me as a villain and manipulate others into ostracizing and shunning me. She demanded that I serve her needs and emotions. If she failed an exam, she expected me to be upset all week and to welcome her with cake and coffee. Since she often failed exams, this meant I had to spend considerable time comforting her, as if it were my duty. It resembles North Korea's strict rules, where citizens are expected to mourn or show sadness publicly when something unfortunate happens to the leader. She was like Kim Jong-un in this regard. It's not surprising, because similar patterns of control and expectation manifest at both small and large scales. Additionally, she expected me to take care of her university tasks. Because we lived near the university and she went home on weekends, she felt entitled to have me manage her responsibilities. She disregarded my own needs and wants, making me feel guilty for not wanting to cater to her demands. She acted as if her life was so important that she had to attend to it, while I was small and insignificant, implying my obligation was to serve her because I had nothing else going on anyways. This was violently belittling. Initially, she masked this with friendliness and goodness, but eventually, she stopped pretending and became openly demanding and cruel, putting me under her boot. Before I lived with her, she had broken up with a boyfriend whom she lived with. When asked about him, she would dismissively look down as if she had crushed him beneath the sole of her boot, portraying him as insignificant and contemptible. However, because she also painted herself as a victim and garnered sympathy from us, her smearing campaign and devaluation of him seemed like genuine hurt and a way of venting. It was only later, when I experienced similar treatment, that I realized what he had gone through. She never reciprocated any favors for me. Instead, she would pretend to do favors for me that I never wanted or needed, which became burdensome. These supposed favors not only did not benefit me but also trapped me into feeling indebted to her, allowing her to ask for favors that truly benefited her. It was a manipulative tactic all along, designed to harm, burden, and trap me, while maintaining the appearance of being good, kind, and selfless. Narcissists employ numerous such tactics, with dual negative implications and positive facades. If you attempt to analyze it, the complexity can be overwhelming and makes you appear paranoid or overly critical. However, in reality, it's designed to discourage unpacking and understanding, thus maintaining insidious control over you. You know that something is seriously wrong, but you cannot put your finger on it. This isolation is reinforced because discussing it with others makes it seem like you're exaggerating or reading too much into minor issues or positive actions. It's a situation where you are acting like a narcissist, but your concerns are rooted in real experiences, whereas theirs are manufactured. The appearance is similar, but the underlying dynamics are completely different. They reap rewards for their victimhood and you get the consequences of that false victimhood that they transferred into you by making it your actual experience. You become a real victim but are treated as if you were an abuser, just like they should be treated. They are a real abuser that makes themselves perceived as victim and you are a real victim that they make perceived as an abuser. Inversion. Here's an example of her false favor that made her look good, giving, and selfless, but was a burden and a trap to me instead. She would give me someone else's university notes, which were clearly obtained through manipulation using her victimhood narrative. I didn't need or use these notes, because I had my own, so they only cluttered my space and distracted me mentally. I felt overwhelmed by the excess materials, yet I accepted them and thanked her to avoid hurting her feelings. Had I not accepted them, she would react defensively, making me feel guilty for rejecting her supposed generosity, which would only add to my burden. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. She once invited me to join her and her boyfriend for dinner. I declined. She reacted with disappointment and insisted I join them. Feeling pressured and fearing her reaction, I reluctantly agreed to sit at the table with them. Throughout the meal, she subtly made me feel guilty, as if I was taking advantage of her hospitality and being ungrateful. It was a confusing experience that left me feeling trapped in a distorted perception of the situation. When I wasn't hungry, I felt obligated to eat to please her. Later, she spread stories that I ate her food without doing anything in return, carefully crafting these narratives to appear truthful while manipulating me into meeting her expectations. This one-time event exposed how she could distort reality and manipulate emotions, leaving me feeling powerless and caught in a surreal scenario orchestrated by her. This experience highlighted her ability to use seemingly innocent gestures like inviting someone to dinner to exert control and manipulate perceptions, ultimately undermining my sense of independence and self-worth. She positioned herself in a position of power. It was me, alone, with no support, while she had her boyfriend who would defend her if I tried to defend myself. His loyalty to her made him believe he was being a good boyfriend by victimizing me. Loyalty is often seen as a positive trait, but it can also be used to commit injustice and victimize those outside their inner circle. When she cooked for me, it felt like a loving deity inviting a lowly follower to her table. If I cooked, it was like a lowly servant desperately trying to please their master. That was the dynamic with her in everything. If she felt I had met her expectations, she would unleash her anger, subtly but openly cruel, a paradoxical behavior. I also heard her make similar accusations about previous roommates, claiming they used her for food and then criticized what they cooked for her. Initially, I thought those people might have taken advantage of her kindness because she portrayed herself as a victim of others' exploitation. However, she was actually fabricating situations and stories, trapping people in her games, and twisting the truth. Eventually, her behavior would provoke people into becoming hostile and abusive towards her, but this was more of a defensive reaction than an initial action. She knew that she was the one who truly did not reciprocate favors, so she needed to engineer situations in which her victims would appear to do what she truly did. Inversion. Projection. Exchange of character, traits, behaviors. The victim narcissist is the real abuser, manipulating situations so others have no choice but to react defensively. Then the narcissist has physical proof of violence of others on them, and that was their goal in the first place. Then the collective starts to bully the manufactured abusers and protect the real abuser, which is the narcissist. It created a completely inverted reality. And if you observe the world from a grounded true self-observer, you will be shocked at the reality all around you, because normal people do the exact same thing, just in subtler ways, and the inert reality is the main reality. It is the reality. The key is to always avoid interactions with such individuals beyond surface-level conversation and to avoid letting them corner you into any discussions. They will manipulate perceptions, force you into agreeing with them, or make you empathize with them by lying about their victimhood. This constant discomfort that I felt during that time kept me on edge, twisting my gut. I never knew how to move or respond, feeling immobilized and paralyzed. Psychologically, this manifested physically, causing muscle tension and making it difficult to move. She controlled me through both rewards and punishments. When I did what she wanted, she would shower me with praise and tell everyone how wonderful I was. However, if I didn't comply, she would swiftly label me as evil, selfish, and uncaring, spreading negative stories about me to others. The pressure to obey her demands was overwhelming because I knew she held the power to tarnish my reputation within our tightly knit group of friends, a community that was my entire world at the time. Losing their acceptance meant losing everything, especially since I had been isolated from many other aspects of life prior to joining this group. Within our circle of friends, there was another narcissist who wielded even more influence, a person I was so afraid of that I couldn't even think about her for years. Only recently have I begun to process what happened with this individual. The dynamics within our group were intricate and deeply meaningful to me, which led me to comply with their wishes for a time in order to preserve my connection with a group of friends whom I cherished. At the time, I struggled to grasp the full scope of the situation. It simply felt cruel and malevolent, leaving me at a loss for words. It was as if I were trapped in a reality where they wielded the power of monstrous deities, and I felt small and powerless in their presence. Initially, they appeared normal, but with grandiose behaviors. However, once I failed to meet their hidden expectations, they transformed into merciless and vengeful figures, almost like deities with the ability to control my fate. The experience felt almost spiritual, like I had been ensnared in something beyond my control, a curse binding me to their will. They held my life in their hands and had the power to completely destroy it, which they did. They also marked me for further abuse in the future, as other narcissists recognized certain traits and behaviors of their victims, just as I had been marked by narcissists before them. The pattern where one appears harmless until they sense they trapped you in some way repeats with narcissists. It's crucial to maintain independence and surface-level interactions because that's when life remains positive and free from the narcissistic world that surrounds us. As long as you keep a certain distance, their true nature stays hidden, and you can continue to experience life positively.